Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. I wasn't really able to get out and film anything, so I was trying to think, well, what is like the best way to honor laborers on a day such as this? And I thought no better way than to talk about American infrastructure. So I figured we'd do another little Google trip and talk about several things and eventually be getting to the All-American Canal. So it doesn't get much more USA than that. But first, before we get into any of that, we need to sort of highlight why it even exists. So here we are in the southern part of, the southern part of North America on California, where essentially the peninsula of Gulf of California is. But if we look at the tip, where this delta is, this sea actually used to go all the way up to the Salton Sea, which is currently California's largest inland lake. It's actually a big destination spot. We'll get to that in a second. So this used to be all part of the ocean. But then the Colorado River, which is the West's mightiest river, which runs down here past Las Vegas, it emptied out into the sea right here. Well, over millions of years, carrying lots and lots of sediment, it essentially landlocked this whole area and pushed the delta out here. So without the Colorado River, this would be a much, much higher gulf, but it's not. And what's always been bizarre to me is the fact that the United States grows most of its agriculture in the most arid place in our nation. And that happens to be right here in the Imperial Valley. You can tell by all the squares of farmland that this is where farm likes to be landed. And the issue here is, while in the bright side of this area, where you have the Salton Sea, this is essentially an ancient ocean. So there's a lot of salinity here, a lot of salt and a lot of sediment, both from the Colorado River and a lot of leftover material from the ocean that makes this very fertile soil, very fertile land. But at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when this started to rapidly expand, it required water that was way beyond what is naturally there. But humans, being the sneaky, cunning creatures that we are, we came up with a great solution. We figured, well, hey, one of the nation's largest rivers runs just about, less than 100 miles from here. How do we get that water into the Imperial Valley? So what did they do? They built this hunk of cement right here known as the Imperial Dam. This thing carries about up to 26,000 cubic feet of water per second. I can't visualize that, but it's a lot based on the number. And it starts here where the canal is at its widest with the most amount of water, and it runs all the way down to this beautiful piece of artificial intelligence that is the canal. And it runs 83 miles. It's very deep, very fast, up to 5 miles an hour, and very cold, which is why it's claimed up to 5,000 lives since its construction in the late 20s. Most of those are people who are trying to cross this little hot topic right here, which is the United States and Mexico border. They attempt to cross the canal, they fall in, and they drown. But it runs through here, and it slowly gets thinner and thinner and thinner until you can hardly see it on the map, and it stops right here. As it goes through the Imperial Valley, it pumps water north and basically creates irrigation for this whole section with some exceptions. But when it gets to the end, this is all just leftover, which gets essentially piecemealed or shipped out to other farms. And this all, all the runoff goes into the Salton Sea. And so it creates this beautiful little artificial man-made water cycle here. And as like I just said, this is a big area for farming. And El Santo, which is its biggest city, I may have said that wrong, is this beautiful little collaboration of American and Mexican culture. There is a lot of farmers here, as you can imagine, as it being their largest economy. But a lot of these are people who have immigrated over to work in the United States, and often they get started here doing what they may have been doing over the border. I'm not sure. El Santo's second largest industry is actually the Salton Sea itself. Tourism is second largest to the agriculture in the Imperial Valley, mainly because people come here and swim in it and enjoy its therapeutic results. There's actually these mud pots, which I believe are right here. I might be very wrong, but they are pools that you can get in that are left over from volcanic activity that are warm. They're just above ambient temperature, so people go in there, you know, they feel the effects, they feel all mudded out, and they feel better, which sounds like some rich, like Los Angeles kind of vacation to me. Another notable thing right here where Calico meets, what is this town called? Mexicali? I might be saying those wrong as well, but you might recognize this angle of the border. This is right over the fence, and you'll see images like this, often used in the news to sort of illustrate the connectivity of these two countries, and that is all taken from this section of the border here, which is very west. Like every brilliant American-made thing, there comes with some downsides to the All-American Canal, mainly it being that it's taking a tremendous amount of water out of the Colorado River. Now, the Colorado River has already been sort of, you know, just abused in a lot of ways, as it runs through giant cities that get a lot of their drinking water from, like Denver and Las Vegas. And then you have this giant Goliath farming operation that takes a good chunk of it. So what has happened is, if you follow the Colorado River in certain areas where you can see how wide it used to run, but now some years it doesn't run at all, or it's just a very little stream. So a lot of these farmers that are south are sort of just getting whatever's left over from the United States, and that has been more and more of a struggle for small farmers in those towns and for the economy in general. In general, I just find this whole area so interesting because, again, it's sort of like, why are we growing our most water demanding resource in the area of the United States where there's so little of it, versus, you know, living up here in New England where we are more or less the Saudi Arabia of fresh water, and we don't do a whole lot. So anyways, that's the video. That's all I have for you. I hope you found it interesting. I am just always intrigued with giant operations of any kind, and I sort of went down a rabbit hole on this the other night, just trying to answer that question of why. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.